You're listening to TehachaPod with Budge, Corey Costelloe, and Greg Garrett.
We'd like to welcome everybody to a new episode of TehachaPod. With me on the phone, we've got Greg Garrett, our city manager, Corey Costelloe, our economic development coordinator. Gentlemen, thank you again for joining us. We're on video just to promote the new episode, so tell everyone howdy.
Hi everyone, Greg with the city. I'm so happy to be here today. We've got some information to share with you about our current Corona-19 issues. So stay tuned. Please listen to the entire broadcast.
Yeah, bear with us certainly as we're trying this from three different locations as to be, as to follow the guidelines from the governor and so on about remote work and all that stuff. So everybody's chiming in and doing this thing from different spots. So it's only 4 or 5 episodes in. We're already having to do new things. So here we go.
It's kind of like the band broke up. We can't really be in the same room together. But actually, we're absolutely exercising social distancing and making sure that what we're doing is working within the standards of what the state and federal government are asking us to do. Of course, as I go and touch my face as soon as I start to talk. But we're trying to make sure... We're trying to make...
I feel like I'm drinking from a fire hose when it comes to technology. So I'm trying to keep up, but I'm doing a decent job.
So for those that are listening and haven't seen the video, what we're doing is the three of us are at 3 different locations. Greg is at City Hall, Corey's at home, I'm at home, and we are recording this via the Zoom app. And that's not to try and plug them, but it was a piece of technology that allows us to look at each other, talk to each other, have a conversation as if we're across the table from each other, and hopefully this still translates the way our first few podcasts do. So that's our goal, and just know that we're all in this together and trying to figure it out. And the goal of today's TehachaPod, let's talk about what's going on. Constantly the information is changing. Greg, you had a chance to participate in a teleconference with Congressman McCarthy.
Right. So just got off the phone actually with McCarthy and his team in Washington, D.C. and Kern County, Tulare County, a couple counties that were within his district, leaders, city managers, fire chiefs, Matt Constantine, Kern County Health Department, so on and so forth. But the highlights, in a nutshell, were that the congressman is working closely with senators in town, trying to pull together these bills so that they can get money out, economic stimulus. There's some details with that, and I think he's very hopeful that something will be adopted or passed in the next couple of days. So we're providing some input on what this district or what this area, Kern County, is looking for. Money for hospitals, right? They're starting to hurt. People have stopped elective surgeries, right? And so now it's just the ER and providing service to potential coronavirus personnel or people. But several, just lots of discussion. It was a really great hour and a half of back and forth. And the devil's in the details, right? So we were sharing as constituents in his district what matters to us in this area, so that he can feed that into the DC machine. So pleasure to be part of that. Very humbled to be part of that, and we will continue that. In addition to that, I want to remind everybody that every morning Kern County Office of Emergency Services hosts a city manager conference call, and then I'm on the phone with Adventist Health every morning at 7:30 a.m. and every evening at 7:30 p.m. And we're networking and we're working so well together, really trying to understand better what we can do to help the communities that we live in.
I'm also every day talking with the other PIOs within the county, including the CSDs. So we're having conversation at different levels of government and management that we can share messaging if need be, or what the issues are. So we're, on my side, on the communication side, we're also having conversations on a county-wide basis. So that way we can have the best information to share with our folks. And I know, Corey, you've been busy yourself.
Yeah, a lot of information. I think what we've seen, everybody's email inbox, we've probably got a resource guide from every group we've ever shopped at or given an email to. And it's good to know that how Etsy is handling COVID-19, right? Everybody gets that email about stuff. So what we decided to do was to basically take this sort of information overload and put it in one spot on our website at liveuptotehachapi.com. And we've got our COVID-19 emergency banner at the top. It also does say now resources and response. And if you click on that, it takes you to a pretty comprehensive website. It's tabbed for easy browsing. And with a little bit of work for myself and a few others that have been sort of gathering, like I said, there's so much coming in. So how do we sort of drill it down to what's important for Tehachapi residents? And so there's a website with several different tabs. There's one about starts with the city declaration, so about our emergency declaration and what that means for our essential services. Then there's a restaurants tab, and that's important as we continue to talk about restaurants staying open for takeout, curbside, or even sometimes delivery. We've got a whole page, and this is not just city restaurants. We've expanded it to greater Tehachapi as well. And this page has got links to menus. It's got what they're doing, curbside, pickup, delivery, their phone number for orders, and again, other links if they do partner with somebody else for a third-party delivery and stuff. So that's pretty important. Is I think a lot of folks have changed the way that they eat and are trying to obviously order more takeout now because we try to support small business. So that's there. There's a grocery link, which is important for groups that might be seniors or the highly vulnerable. The shopping hours for all the grocery stores in Tehachapi, so Albertsons, Dollar General, Dollar Tree, Family Dollar, Save Mart, and Walmart, what their new hours are, because they have shifted their hours to maximize stocking, as well as the hours they have for seniors and the vulnerable. Those is there as well. And then on with stuff for businesses, how they can get involved in the SBA loans, how if you're a nonprofit, there's some grants available as well. Health stuff related to COVID-19, even educational tools if you're maybe either trying to entertain your kids at home or you're trying to just keep them engaged. There's links there as well, including info from the Tehachapi Unified School District. So a lot of stuff on the page, but it's all tabs, so it's not just one long laundry list of scrolling items.
It's nice.
It's a really user-friendly website. We've had, like Corey said, Corey's been inputting this information, but we have a couple of city employees that are just gathering data like crazy, and there's so much to tell, but we're trying to reduce it down to something where people can easily go to one place, click again, and get what they want. And as always, call City Hall too, but it's a really user website, so really proud of it, and others are taking notice and following the lead too.
And you mentioned a couple other employees that have been working on it, which also includes one from the police department. So they're looking at it on the public safety aspect as well, things that we are important to share and are relatable to the community.
That's right.
We also added a new tab today. We've been adding a few tabs. The one that was added today is utilities. And I want to talk about that briefly because this is something we started last week when we had the special council meeting to introduce the policy that said, look, we're going to allow businesses to opt in to defer their payments for a few months. And then also we said we're going to suspend shutoffs and late fees for all customers. That's been expanded to the facilities that we no longer control. Southern California Gas Company, so the natural gas provider in the city of Tehachapi, also has a program where we have a link on the site to talk about payments, to how to pay during them not working in the office as well, but also their suspension of shutoffs too. And Southern California Edison has done the same thing to suspend disconnections during the distance of the emergency, and then details on payments too. So all the utilities are along the same lines right now with suspending shutoffs during this crisis.
And if someone wants to opt in a business here in the city of Tehachapi, how do they do that, Corey?
Yeah, so on that business resources tab on our website, we do have the City of Tehachapi program, and it's got the utility payment deferral flyer. You click on that. It's got the information on how to contact Hillary Thomas in our office in terms of utility billing, and she will get them signed up for that program to basically take the payments for the next couple of months and spread them out over the next 6 months. And so it's not you don't have to pay right away, and it'll be something that hopefully as business picks back up, it'll be paid off in due time.
You know, one thing that we've been, every day it's been an adjustment. Something a little bit different's been occurring for each of us and how we're doing our job, how we're getting our messaging out. It's been really nice to have the partnership not only between the three of us, but also the rest of our city employees taking photos, shooting video, sharing messaging, letting the public know that we are operating. We are taking care of everything that we need to take care of for them. Public safety, our police department's answering calls, the water clean, fresh, being tested as it normally does. It's you open the tap, there's clean, fresh drinking water, and then the wastewater is flushing away and heading down to the wastewater treatment plant. So, Greg, I know you got a chance to go out and talk to some of our employees out on site. What was your thought process when you were out there? And I'm sure there's got to be a sense of pride too.
I'm super glad you brought that up, Key. As a matter of fact, I talked to Tyler Napier, our Deputy Public Works Director, this morning, and we had a discussion about how important it is to continue to feed information out to the public. Just straightforward facts. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? How are we doing it? Just like we're doing right now. We talked about shooting some videos. So he took the initiative. He shot a video, and I don't know if this is on social media yet, but we want to make sure that people, if you're listening to this, you're also following us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and so that you can see what's going on. But back to the videos. He shot a video of the guys working at our wastewater treatment plant. We still continue to treat wastewater. It's super important. He shot a video of the guys out testing some freshwater facilities and reading water meters, those sorts of things. But to really emphasize, our infrastructure is solid. You can drink the water. You don't have to go and buy 5 cases of water from one of the local stores. It's always good to have backup and those sorts of things, but your tap still works. And it's really important for people to know that we continue to provide that good, solid service that they expect. And that's something they don't need to worry about, right? They can just go on and try to figure out how they can be part of the solution and not worry about what we do, because we've got it. We're proud that we've got it.
And Corey, I know that you've been involved with some of our community groups with things that we've done in the past. That's something that's going on where we are seeing community helping community, neighbors helping neighbors. So you've been in contact, I know, with Salvation Army and some others. So they are the point of contact, isn't that right?
Yeah, I had a couple meetings, but one of them was with the with the Salvation Army and a group of local pastors that sort of came together to talk about really the online church and what does that mean for a lot of churches up here that have never done that before, and share ideas and share resources. And then also the Salvation Army was there to talk about the sort of assistance aspect of that. And we've really made the Salvation Army sort of the clearinghouse. The Tehachapi Salvation Army. Now, certainly, if there's folks that need help, going through your church could be a good start, and then they'll work with the Salvation Army. So instead of a lot of different groups trying to go out, maybe procure things on their own behalf, it's been easier to sort of make the Salvation Army sort of the clearinghouse for all that stuff. They are still getting deliveries, which is encouraging. Even the grocery stores, as sold out of things that they are still making donations, produce, and that kind of stuff to the Salvation Army. So we've referred a few calls to City Hall that came in from seniors that were having issues, seniors that were actually taking care of other seniors that were having issues. So the Salvation Army is the best way to work. At Sandy Chavez, our local Salvation Army director, is the point of contact there. And then it's been cool to see just the groups that have worked together, like I mentioned, the group of pastors offering to share resources and stuff and say, hey, you want to have a video studio at your church, but I have one at my church. If you want to come and record something to release to your members, feel free. And the same's happened with the restaurant group. I think the last podcast, we were getting ready to meet with the restaurant group, and they've come together big time and talked about how to get curbside going or delivery, or, I know Mano Lujan at Red House said, look, if you're out of something, let me know. I can, if I have it, I'll give it to you, and then you'll just get me back later when I need something. So it's been kind of cool to see them sort of band together and try to figure this out. And they're finding creative ways to deliver food and have food ready and that kind of stuff. And so it's been cool to see the different groups that I don't want to say necessarily compete with each other, but have a lot of times are always trying to be one better than the other, but now they're all coming together to try to figure out and keep people open during this tough time.
Yeah, and we're trying to do what we can. I know, Greg, you ran around town yesterday snapping photos of some of our eateries just to remind people that they're available for takeout.
Yeah, that's for sure. So, I spent probably an hour and a half going around snapping photos of all the front doors with their sign that says open, and with their maybe their new hours, with their takeout and delivery areas that they've set aside. So they're really working together well, and couldn't be prouder of our restaurants, and you really support them. Try to call ahead, place an order, and go pick it up, and have a nice hot meal at home. Right? You don't have to stress about cooking and cleaning at home. Do something for our local restaurants. That's for sure.
That's one thing that as we look at times when they're difficult, challenging, as we're in right now, you reinvent yourself in order to stay relevant, to stay above water, and I think that's what we're seeing with this restaurant industry, especially locally, is they have to change their model. They can't offer the dine-in services, so they're making adjustments. They're figuring it out, and I think the public is responding. From what I've seen we post these images, people are then talking about and complimenting these businesses on the service they're getting, the quality of the food, the social distancing that they're experiencing when they're getting it. So there's a lot of responsible activity that's taking place, and people wanting to help those small businesses because they employ so many people. I know small businesses are really the backbone of the United States.
They absolutely are. We're seeing a new economy emerge. I don't want to get too far out in front of this, but certainly once this coronavirus is contained, and we will contain it, we're seeing a new economy emerge. It's kind of like after 9/11. How did people react? What did they do? They moved to rural areas. Did they start their own small business? And we're starting to see some positive pieces come out of this, so that people can reinvent themselves and be better and more efficient, and we're all going to be better at the end.
I think you're going to see, to kind of piggyback on that point, you're going to see really maybe another push to rural, but rural with services, as in, luckily the federal government made broadband really a right. So we've seen that expand. Obviously, the city of Tehachapi's had it, but to the surrounding communities. And I think you're going to see that sort of push to rural, but you're also going to see a bigger embrace of tech. People that were kind of, I don't need that, I don't want to do that. Now they've kind of had to in this, and we've seen the importance of tech. I mean, if we imagine trying to do this 30 years ago, even 20 years ago, what this would look like if we were all trying to dial into AOL to make it happen, it's not going to work. So I think we're going to see, to Greg's point, we're going to see an embrace of tech and all organizations, and how they can work better, how they can use technology, and a lot of the resources and those kind of work at home stuff is on that site we've got up right now, and there's a lot of them are doing free 30, 60-day trials of their stuff, and I think you're going to see some of these tech companies profit off of it, but in a good way, because people are going to realize these services are necessary, and this is going to be a new way of doing business.
And supply chains, when we look at groceries, when we look at medical supplies, all the different things, the supply chain is so important to the survival of the human being and what we do and how we do it. Supply chains are going to get more efficient. It's just going to go on and on. I think the sky's the limit here, and I don't want to get too far out ahead of what we're trying to do here, and that is contain this virus and assist, because the wave, I'm told, is things are going to get a little worse, more positive here pretty quick, a lot more positive results and testing. But certainly we must look to the future. We must be positive, and we must help our neighbors and each one of us.
Yeah, I know for me, I've had conversations across the fence line, with neighbors. And even though I get along with my neighbors, it was nice to have conversations. We see them out in the yard because they're working from home or whatever. They're not spending time on the road like they were. You're able to kind of reconnect to your direct community around you. And then the utilization of technology, like you were saying, Greg, I mean, just what we're doing right now is we're able to put this podcast together thanks to a conferencing app. And we put that, we tested it out with an emergency council meeting on Monday morning. So let's recap that real quick. I know it's been out there, but let's recap what we did. We originally did a city council meeting last week from the steps of City Hall, and then we wanted to further experience the social distancing and how we could do it with technology. So how did that come to place? I don't know, Greg or Corey, whichever, how that we put it together. I know the two of you were behind it.
Okay, so we had two items on the agenda. One was, let's talk about the technology first. So we live streamed it so that people could participate, and we hosted telephone calls, even though nobody did call in. and there are no comments. And I think that's probably because everybody supported the two agenda items. But, we had just a couple little hiccups, but first time right out of the gate, I was so happy with the way it processed and went through. So all 5 city council members were at home or at their place of work. They called in. I was at City Hall, and we had our city clerk at the City Hall Annex where we hosted the meeting. And so we were all practicing the social distancing, if you will. And the 2 items, one was the emergency declaration, which is needed for us to be able to access funds and different things at the state and federal level. But that needed to be ratified within 7 days. So that was ratified. So the council passed that unanimously. The other is a work from home policy. So if we're going to have employees that are working from home, we don't want any unintended consequences like Key and Corey, the ones I'm looking at on my screen right now. Certainly, we need to protect the taxpayers' assets, the money that's going into these things, and if somebody gets hurt, you could run wild, right? But you need a policy. So we adopted an emergency policy that is a work from home because we want to make sure that we're covering all of our aspects in HR. So all in all, it was a great morning. We accomplished several good things.
And that goes back to your previous point, though, too, Greg. I mean, this was a work from home policy was something that was probably never thought of for the city and for a lot of cities right now, right? Given the previous circumstances, it never came up. And then obviously something like this, totally unforeseen, and then you have to make an adjustment. So again, it goes go back to that business practices and that new economy. This is a perfect example of that.
Well, we're a municipal corporation. We're owned by the taxpayers, and we want to make sure that we're protecting the municipal corporation's assets. When I was on my city manager call with all the other city managers in the county a day or two ago, I had mentioned that we have a policy, and every one of them jumped on it. Please send it to me. Do that, right? We don't want to reinvent the wheel. We need to make sure that we're helping our colleagues.
And we got a lot of phone calls after the council meeting from other cities and other agencies locally. How'd you guys do that remote meeting? And so we shared what we did. So obviously you might see a few more of those upcoming council meetings, or whether it's board of director meetings from different groups around the area that as we all share best practices right now. So that was something that other folks might be emulating here shortly as well.
And for those, that might be at home, at least for me, I don't have any small children running around, so I don't have any distractions like that. But I sent
mine away. I sent mine to the babysitter like normal. We got to get work done. Can't get work done with the kids running around, I'm telling you.
I was telling Greg, I was exhausted yesterday at the end of the workday. I probably got a lot more work done here remotely because I wasn't sticking my head in someone else's office to ask a question or vice versa. Someone coming around, there was no distractions. Everything was just right there at my fingertips and able to go use the phone for some messaging back and forth. But I'll tell you what, I was tired at the end of the day because but the things that I was able to accomplish, I felt really good. It was almost like I got close to twice as much work done. So it was.
Well, I think the key certainly is to treat it like a normal day. I mean, right. We're at City Hall at 7 a.m. and I was at this desk at 7 a.m. in front of my computer as I normally would be, and treat it like a normal day. I got up at the same time and that kind of stuff. To disrupt that sort of flow, then you get out of really a work mentality, and that's where the distractions sort of come in. So treating it like a normal, and we have some remote access capabilities to access computers at City Hall. And so, I think the biggest key is just to keep it as normal as possible for most of us.
Yeah, and for sure. You notice I called both of you at 7 o'clock this morning, and I called you both at 5:30 just to make sure you'd answer the phone.
No, he didn't. He wasn't checking in on us. Don't worry.
But to Key's point, I know that Key, you worked your butt off yesterday, and then early this morning, you were being interviewed by Bakersfield news stations, and then Corey, when we talked, I was so impressed with the website, the way that it just so quickly, and I knew it didn't happen quickly. It was just a lot of work that went into loading that data to the website. So rest assured, these guys are working their butt off getting things done.
That wasn't fair, Corey. Shoot your mugshot across. So for
No,
those,
I didn't do that on purpose. That was some kind of weird. My phone said low battery, so that's what was happening.
No, this technology thing is you're going to ride with it here.
No idea what just happened. I literally said low battery, and I hit close. Next thing you know, I was sending you guys a screenshot.
for those of you at home, we got the from the thumbnail live photos of each of us working. All of a sudden, Corey's shot went to a staged studio headshot photo with him and his rodeo hat.
And you know, the nice thing about what's happening right now, it's a very serious topic, but we have to remember, don't overthink. You love your family, love your colleagues, love the people that are your neighbors, love your town, and keep your head up, right, and be positive, and we're going to get through this. I mean, that's really the point here in the last 90 seconds that we're chuckling a little bit, but keep doing good stuff.
Now, Greg, you when one of the trips that you went out and talked to Jeff Lingerfelt, and I know you've got a quick soundbite from him. But what was it like to go out to the hospital, and what were your thoughts out there?
It was amazing. You know, we're so blessed to have the Adventist group here in town, and the new hospital with the healthcare district's leadership. I mean, what we have now is unsurpassed in a small rural community. But certainly I went over there and had a quick meeting with Jeff, and several of the people, the employees came out. Misty Cantrell, she is amazing. Her leadership, Jeff's leadership, Harold Pierce, Christina Scrivener, Josh, I could go on, but they're super positive, doing good work. And we're lucky to have them, and I'm lucky to be able to call them my friends and colleagues, that's for sure.
Well, let's check in with what Jeff had to say.
We're here with Jeff Lingerfelt, Adventist Health Tehachapi Valley Medical Center's CEO, and we want to get a few thoughts from Jeff.
You know, we're prepared for this coronavirus. Our staff are working hard. We've got a wonderful, dedicated team here, and we're just here to serve the community, and we want to assure the community that we'll be here if you need us.
Perfect. Thank you.
Well, it's nice to see, again, messaging coming from different parts of our community. So, Greg, thanks for going out and talking to Jeff and him sharing his quick thoughts on what's going on in the hospital. I had a chance to talk to Andrew Freeborn with the Kern County Fire Department, and he's got some things that he'd like to share for our community and from the fire department's perspective. So let's quickly go check in on what Andrew had to say. With me, I've got Andrew Freeborn. Andrew's on the phone, working remotely just as I am, but we've got great information we want to share for the folks here in Tehachapi. So, Andrew, thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Keith.
Let's talk about what's going on. Everything is changing so rapidly. But as far as the fire department is concerned with what's going on with this COVID coronavirus, let's talk about the point of view of the fire department, how you're responding to calls, and what you recommend for the public.
Okay, so from the fire department standpoint, we want the community to know that the fire department is still responding to emergencies as we always have. There's no change there. There may be some extra precautions depending on what the dispatchers are discovering when someone does call 911. And so there are certain calls from a medical nature that you may see them wearing a little extra PPE, which is personal protective equipment. That could be goggles, a mask, almost like a disposable gown, if you will. But other than that, we are continuing to run our operations as we always have. The community can rest assured that if there's a problem with a fire or a car accident or any of these things that we will respond to, we will still be providing that service. Yes, our administrative buildings are closed to the public, but that doesn't mean that those buildings have shuttered. There are still members of our staff, administrative staff in these buildings, and by closing the doors to the public, this affords our staff there the opportunity to continue working, which in turn allows the firefighters in the fire stations to carry on emergency operations.
I'd heard you mention in an earlier teleconference you and I were involved in, talking about if people have some mild symptoms and they get worried, it's not about calling 911 at that point. What should they do if they feel they've got maybe a medical issue, or they're so nervous that they need some reassurance?
We have found that there are many in the community that are rightfully a little alarmed, a little nervous, and we understand that. And why are we talking about these things? It's certainly not to create fear or panic. Rather, we want our community to be able to make educated, thoughtful decisions. And by following the recommendations regarding social distancing, members of our community are helping to keep the spread and effects to a manageable level. And this will ultimately allow things to return back to normalcy as we know it as quickly as possible. But if an individual were to have, let's say, symptoms of a heart attack or stroke, you don't want to hesitate. You want to call 911. 911 is for emergencies. But if an individual is looking for information about COVID-19, coronavirus, they're looking for a ride to the doctor, they want to get tested, they have mild symptoms, any of these things are not something that you would call 911 for. And that is the nice thing that Kern County Public Health has even started a hotline, which is 661-321-3000. And that's where individuals can call for those questions that are non-emergency, but there's certainly still questions that are valid and they need answers to. That would be the hotline that they can call.
Great. Could you repeat that number again, please, Andrew?
Yeah, it's 661-321-3000.
Perfect. Well, thank you for being available for us. I know that it's important for the community to hear from each of our public safety departments to see where you're at, how we're dealing with what's going on. So we really appreciate your time. I don't want to take up too much more of it. So again, thank you, and maybe we'll check in with you later in the week.
Yeah, that sounds great, Keith. Thank you so much.
Once again, our public safety is on top of it. Our hospital's on top of it. We're making sure water, wastewater, our public safety is working. We're looking at trying to do what we can to help our community with our deferral of the water payments or waiving of fees, that wherever we can help, we're doing it. Gentlemen, anything you want to add before we close out another edition of TehachaPod?
I would say just love one another, be kind, and continue to support your local leaders and your neighbors alike.
I think just continue to communicate with each other and do what you can. Obviously, I think folks have really gotten the message now. There's a lot less traffic on the roads. There's a lot more people staying at home and working and that kind of stuff. So, keep up with the directive. I think the longer we're able to do this, the more of us to do this, the shorter that this will, this kind of stay-at-home order will have to be in place. So keep doing that, and then, do take advantage of the opportunities to leave the house and go get food from a local restaurant and that kind of stuff to help obviously keep your friends and neighbors employed, and then keep those great businesses in business here in our community. Yeah,
and as we kind of do things a little bit differently, like the news medias are, as I'm in constant communication with them, I'm actually putting together little news packages for them and then providing them to them so they can put on their newscasts. We're doing different ways to get information out. So follow us at City of Tehachapi on Facebook, SoundCloud, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. We are sharing information in different ways, and we just appreciate you listening to another episode of TehachaPod. We'll try and have another one in the next few days. And gentlemen, thank you again for joining me. This remote style was different, and hopefully it comes across and people feel a part of the conversation. And we also invite the public, if you have a question or something that you'd like us to talk about, send an email to us, media@TehachapiCityHall.com. Thank you very much.
TehachaPod is a conversation about Tehachapi designed for the people who live here or who would like to know more about this mountaintop community. If you have a question you would like answered, email media@TehachapiCityHall.com. We will try to answer it on a future episode of TehachaPod.